Welcome to Threads of Sustainability, where we dive into the stories behind sustainable quilting and textile arts. I'm your host, Bridget O'Flaherty, guiding you through the vibrant world of eco-conscious creators, innovators, producers, and industry players. Join us as we explore the intersection of textile creativity and sustainability, a narrative that threads together the past, present, and future of mindful textile practices. The guest that I have today is such an awesome human being, for one thing. She's got an awesome project that she's been working on over the last few years, and it's centered around helping people to destash their stashes and being able to find space for creativity. And it's been a really interesting conversation that I had with Kim Soper from FeelGood Fibers. And it's something that I think is really needed in the world. And I hope you enjoy this conversation. I want to welcome to Threads of Sustainability, Kim Soper, and you are from FeelGood Fibers, Inc. And I'm really excited to have you here because this conversation about what to do with our stashes, what to do with our materials that we accumulate, because as textile artists, we tend to accumulate materials because there's all the good things out there, right? And so you've got this option for how to deal with destashing, which is super cool. And we met, was it like 2 years ago or something like that? We were on a panel together. Yeah. That was the Quilt Alliance panel, right? On sustainability.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome to the podcast. It's nice to have you here and have a conversation. First of all, why don't you give us a little bit of give us the elevator speech? Like what is the elevator pitch of what FeelGood Fibers is? Tell me about that.
Sure. FeelGood Fibers is an online marketplace for quilters to destash and purchase secondhand fabrics from one another. And awesome. As part of that, we have, a blog with lots of articles to help support not only the destash process, but to support quilters in all aspects of being intentional and more creative with their spaces and their stashes. And I kind of speak to that.
So like inspirational content on how to kind of do self-care through all of that kind of that process of destashing, because I imagine that's really complex for people, right?
Exactly. So we came to recognize very quickly that not only were there a lot of thoughts that come up for people when they need to let go of their fabric, but also that they need to be inspired and motivated so that they can kind of, go through the process in the best way that makes them feel supported. And as our goal is, our mission is to try and support quilters through the process to help them to live their best creative lives.
That's awesome. Like it's such a big part. Like I do a lot of talks around sustainability, and it's one of the things that comes up over and over again is people don't know how to get rid of their stash. They don't know how they talk about all the materials. Yeah, I've got so much material. I need to go through it. I hear that so many times. I need to go through that. I really need to organize that. But people feel kind of stuck by that. Do you do workshops and stuff like that as well for people to help them kind of go through that?
I do, actually. I give both lectures and offer decluttering workshops where we work in real time to help go through things in the sewing space. And throughout, I offer tips on how to get over those thoughts that are holding us back, those kind of excuses that our brain makes that cause us to hold on to things rather than letting it go and create space for new creativity to come in.
So what are some of those things that people tell themselves? Like I know what I say, but what are you hearing?
I think a lot of us, tend to, the biggest one I would say is that I spent good money on that.
Okay.
And once we've invested, our own money, we put a lot of value on that, and to let go of something without using it for what it was intended for causes us a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. And so we tend to hold on to things out of almost punishing ourselves for having made the wrong choice in the first place.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I really like to encourage people to do is understand that sometimes we're investing the money into the experience of having owned something so that it teaches us what we like versus what we don't like.
Yeah.
And we don't have to hold on to things that don't make us happy just because we put money into it. We can look at it as an experience, kind of like going to the movies, where you walk out of the movie and you don't have something physical in your hand, but you have the experience of having watched that movie, and it changes the way you think about things. That's the same with having, something that you no longer want to keep. You had the
Yeah.
experience of owning it, and now in the future, you can make better purchasing decisions going forward.
I think that there's also like we have a tendency to only put value on dollars, right? On money. And that's our capitalistic society that we live in. But there is so much value in experiences, right? There that the benefits that we get from even just looking at fabric, that it's a color that we love and it's a material that we love the feel of. Those are experiences that are worth having, and they have value to them. We have to be careful not to put that as the reason we're keeping it. but but the experience that we get to have with the relationship with the fabric is sometimes as much worth as much as the dollars that were
Absolutely.
put into it. I think we need to shift that.
Absolutely. And I encourage people to hold on to things that do make them happy.
Yeah,
If you have fabric that you love to look at, but it's not something that you necessarily want to use in a project, there is value in being a collector and
sure.
having these items in your space to look at and enjoy. The problem is only when it becomes overwhelming
Yeah,
and you have too much stuff that you're no longer enjoying it because you're feeling like
guilt. Yeah,
the overwhelm of stuff is keeping you from doing what you want to do. And that's really only when it's a problem. And everyone's level of comfort with the amount of stuff is different because we all have
sure.
different spaces and different personalities and different types of projects that we like to
Yeah.
work on.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I imagine when you're doing those live destashes, I imagine that there's stories that come with all of the fabrics, right? Like this, I got this piece of fabric from my mother, and it had something to do, or that it was in this great little boutique shop when I was on vacation with my whatever. I imagine there's stories like that for people that attach meaning to the fabric.
Yep. And that's another one of the mindset shifts that I try to work on. Sentimental items are really hard to let go of.
Sure,
And I try to remind people that the memory is not in the item itself.
sure.
The memory still lives inside, but it is harder to let go of the items that we have those kinds of attachments to because it's a physical reminder of the experience.
Yeah, and I think that there's sometimes that's okay to keep those, that there's other
Mhm.
fabrics within, there's other things within our stashes that we can easily and less emotionally let go of. And maybe we're just not ready to part with that particular
Mhm.
memory yet.
Yep.
Maybe it's going to take a little more time, and that's okay to just hang on to it until you are ready. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when you're working with these different folks and you're doing this different stuff and they want to sell their fabric, how are they doing that?
So with FeelGood Fibers, basically you determine, what fabric you would like to list, and you can either list, individual fabrics or do it as bundles. However, it works best for what you're looking to sell, and you get to set the price. For FeelGood Fibers, we are US based only
Okay.
because shipping is included in the price that the seller sets for it. And
How do you do that?
basically they
Sorry,
upload.
this is a little bit more about the business side of things, but how do you
Sure.
have it included in the price? So the person who's doing the selling figures out what their shipping would cost and just adds it into the price?
They estimate it.
Okay.
Basically, most people are using flat rate shipping.
Okay.
So based on the size of the bundle, they can kind of estimate what the shipping will be.
Okay.
Or if they're not using flat rate, you could take an average of where you are in the country, and it's
Sure.
when you're selling a lot of stuff, it tends to all equal out
Right.
because you might be sending some further, some closer. And so we just ask them to include that estimate in the price
Sure.
so that nobody has to calculate shipping as an added on expense at
Right,
the
right.
end.
Okay.
That tends to deter people when they're purchasing.
Sure. Sorry, a little technical information there. I just was like, wait, how do you do that? Um, and so they get their own, basically their own shop on your
Mhm.
website.
Yes.
on the FeelGood Fibers website. So there's a whole bunch of little shops that are selling their stashes. Okay.
Yes.
That's
Exactly.
super cool. And in terms of somebody buying, they just get the list of everything and they can go wander around and figure out what they want to buy.
Yes. And they can shop multiple shops at the same time,
Oh, okay.
put it in there.
Into
And
their cart.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so tell me about how you decided that this was a route you wanted to go. Like how did you stumble into this world of helping people with destashing their stuff and their materials?
About 4 years ago, I just was recognizing that, a lot of destashes were taking place either on Instagram or on Facebook.
Hmm.
But if you weren't part of those groups, or if you didn't happen to catch the destash while it was happening, you didn't know about it. And it also was really difficult to have an online destash if you didn't have a large following.
Right.
You're basically using one hashtag, the great fabric destash,
Yeah.
and hoping that people will see your fabric there. And with the changes in Instagram all the time, you just never know where
Yeah.
things are going to show up in the
Yeah.
algorithm. So I thought it would be really awesome if we could have one central location for people to both destash and shop so that everyone had equal access to what was available just by going online and kind of shopping to see what was there. And that was the basis of how we started.
Were you doing destashes yourself before that?
Not hugely, because I tend to have a smaller fabric collection and really I purchase like as needed. I don't have a
Right.
huge stash, but I just know a lot of people that had so much fabric sitting on shelves that they knew that they didn't want to use, but they didn't know what to do with it. And I
Right.
wanted to create this option so that, it didn't end up in the landfill, but would hopefully go to a home where it would be used and loved instead.
So what's your background? Like how has textiles and quilting come into your life? How did that happen?
So when I had my second son, I was pregnant with my second son. My mom gave me a sewing machine for Valentine's Day,
Oh,
and I
nice.
decided that I wanted to try and make a quilt for the baby that was on the way.
Nice.
And that was pretty much where I started. I bought some organic Cloud9 fabrics as the first fabric that I ever purchased.
So
And
you were thinking about sustainability right from the get-go. So
from the
why that?
beginning,
Like, have you got a background in sustainability? Did you grow up in an environment where that was something that you wanted to have? Like, how did that ethos come in play for you?
it just has always been really important to me. I wouldn't say that I'm perfect at it by any
I don't
means.
think anybody
I
is.
kind of think the philosophy is just to always maybe try and be 10% better
Okay,
than, I am right now. And so, because it can feel overwhelming and it can feel like
for
there's
sure.
so many areas that we could be doing better.
For sure.
And so I think when I had, my first son and then was pregnant with the next, I was really thinking about, giving them the best, cleanest things that
Okay.
I could. And
Okay.
so organic fabrics and organic foods and all that, I started learning more about it at that time.
Okay. Okay. So
And
it's motivated
it
by your
kind of
kids,
changed my,
really.
yeah.
Okay. And so you got into quilting a little bit. Was that a
Mhm.
whole new world for you that you really hadn't been a part of before?
Not at all. My mom had made quilts. She had started taking quilting classes when I was in high school, but at that point, I was not interested
Yeah.
at all. And when I started looking online at modern quilting fabrics and seeing this world of modern quilters, it just really inspired me, and
Nice. Yeah.
I got hooked.
Nice. And so you started into quilting yourself, and did you join guilds? Did you join groups? How did you start to get to this bigger idea of starting a business?
I think everything happened really organically, honestly. Through my local quilt shop, they started a chapter of the Modern Quilt Guild here on Long Island.
Okay.
And eventually I became the president of the guild.
Okay.
And then from there, I was blogging at Leland Ave Studios and sharing what I was making online,
Okay.
and really became a part of the quilting community, started going to QuiltCon, and
Nice.
from there, just learning more about the industry and the people, and fell in love.
Yeah, nice. And so are you teaching that other part as well? Like, do you do modern patterns? Do you do quilting that way? Are you teaching that kind of stuff, or that's just for the love of what you're doing?
That's really more just my personal, hobby
Nice.
and creative outlet. But no, I don't teach any quilting workshops or anything like that.
Okay, okay. So you teach the declutter workshops and do guest speaking like
Exactly.
that. Okay, okay. That's your focus.
Yes.
This is a great time for me to jump in here and extend an invitation to you folks. For those of you who might have promised yourselves to do a stash review this year, I know I'm one of those people. I'm inviting you to come and join me on a 30-day stash review challenge where we get a chance to take a look at our materials and assess what the value is of them. Are they precious? Are they functional? Are they things that we maybe don't need in our lives anymore? And how can we sustainably move them from our stash to somebody else's so they have a circular process to them? We're going to take a look at all of that and take a look at how we can actually do those kinds of things and learn some of the stories behind some of the materials that we have in our stashes and share that stuff with each other in the Green Stitchers Hive. If you haven't joined the Green Stitchers Hive already, you can head over to my website at bridgetoflaherty.com and learn more about the 30-day challenge and the Green Stitchers Hive. And so where do you hope that Feel Good Fibers will go? What's your goal with that? Do you have one? I know these
I
are
mean,
things we
I
always
think
revisit, right?
since we started it, our goal has always been that we just want to see it exist in the world.
Yeah.
So, when we first started, we didn't even take any fees at all. We passed all of the money back to the sellers because we knew that we were, kind of getting people away from Instagram and Facebook, which were already free platforms for destashing.
Right.
And, just in the last year, we introduced a 5% fee because as the site grows, the expenses of owning a
Sure.
site grow with it.
Sure.
So, we really, for the initial period of creating it and getting it established in the world, have been more focused on getting people to use the platform and enjoy the experience of using the platform,
Yeah.
because we do feel that eventually there is great potential for its growth.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. So it's a very much a community project.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's such an important piece for the way that textiles need to move forward. And I think that there's really an interesting I love that you're doing that, because I find that we tend to step away from the idea of community and our social connections. We don't really see that as part of sustainability. Sustainability, we always talk about the environment and how
Right.
what the environmental impact is. And that's definitely a part of what you're doing, because you're helping keep things out of landfills. Because as we know and talk about on this podcast all the time, the textile waste that goes into landfills is enormous. It is huge, and it's a big part of the problem. So any solutions we start seeing are really, really important. I'm disappointed that you're only in the States. Maybe we'll have to start something like that here in Canada so that we can have some options here in Canada, because that's one of the biggest things that I hear is, how do I deal with my fabric other than going on Facebook or maybe Instagram? And again, you have to have the following. So, and people don't have the technology as well. They don't have those skills for photographing and posting and dealing with all of that in the same kind of way. Anyway, it doesn't become a level playing field, it feels like.
Right. Oh, it is a lot of work to destash.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the first person to admit, it takes a lot of thought to, go through the time to not only decide what it is that you're going to sell, but then to come up with the price, to give the description, to take the photographs. So, it does take work, but the thing that I've seen is that for the people that do it, the reward is so great, because not only are they recouping some of the expense that they invested in something they no longer want, but then they know that it's going to a home where somebody is going to use it and wants to use it. And that feels really good. So it's kind of like this double win once
Yeah.
you get through the process.
Yeah. Well, and my point was coming back to the community piece in all of this. Suddenly there's this collective idea and this collective movement towards let's keep those textiles out of waste and out of landfills because we're doing this together. We're working and I get to share my materials with another person in another part of the country, and they're going to go ahead and use those fabrics and materials in a way that I couldn't. And I don't know, there's something lovely about connecting like that.
I think it's a beautiful full circle kind
Yeah.
of, yeah.
It's always about the human interaction, right? It's not just about the physical exchange. It's about the human interaction and knowing that it is going off to a better home or another home. And that person will use it the way that they are wanting to use it. And sometimes do your folks share pictures of their finished stuff that they've bought through Destashes? Does that kind of stuff happen?
We do. We have a hashtag that we use. It's called FGF in the wild.
Nice.
And that's where we encourage people to share what they've made with stuff that they purchased, or even to share when they're about to send something off to a new home in,
Nice.
it's shipping box and stuff.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it just would be such a great way for the people who are letting go to know, oh yeah, it actually got used. That's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you got stories of anybody, any of your own stashes or of anybody personally where you've done sort of a big load of stuff? Is there anything where you've helped with, folks that are kind of struggling with the idea of where to start with destashing? Are there groups that are helping with doing that kind of thing, going in to help a person?
I mean, I'm not sure about groups, but I actually do one-on-one coaching
Oh, okay.
with people that are really looking for help to get things moving along, and they know that they need that accountability.
Yeah.
So I've worked with a lot of clients that have made a ton of progress on their spaces,
Oh, that's awesome.
because we set weekly goals, or every 2 months we'll set goals and we'll check in, and they'll report back what they've accomplished. And so it's a great way for people to feel like they have somebody that's rooting for them and also keeping them accountable so that they do what they actually set out to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's that kind of, and again, that's connecting back to this community piece, right? Like that's, even though you are making an environmental impact in reducing waste, I think the bigger narrative with what it is that you do is really about this creative community that is sharing the textiles across the country. I think that's really awesome. So I guess tell us where people can find you. How can they find you?
Sure. They could find me at feelgoodfibers.com
Okay.
and on Instagram at feelgoodfibers, and also on Facebook at feelgoodfibers.
Awesome. So you're easy to find out there. Awesome. Have you got workshops that are coming up that people would want to sign up for? Is anything planned for
I
them?
just did one this week with Libs Elliott and her Sew Squad.
Oh, nice.
So that one just finished. I have like a couple coming up in March, but nothing that's really immediate right now.
Okay. And is that something that people sign up for on your website?
No, they usually like guilds reach out,
Oh, okay.
or
Okay.
that kind of stuff.
Okay. So you don't have like a website situation of courses that you're offering or workshops. You just the one-on-one for
No,
your
people
website?
can sign up for the coaching
Yeah.
through the website,
Okay.
but the lectures usually people just reach out and ask, are
Awesome.
you
Well,
willing to do
I
this
mean,
work?
yeah, there's listeners on here who might be guild members who you never know might reach out to you, and they can organize
Sure,
that kind of destash workshop for their guild members, which would be super cool, right?
that would be amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for talking with me today. I find it it's an area that I haven't really reached out too much to for people because I haven't really known how to. And so I was really glad that I kind of stumbled back upon you because have known you before. I thought, oh, that would be really interesting to talk with her and find out how people can actually get into dealing with their materials and their fabrics. So thank you for
What
today.
I also feel is like, kind of cool about it is that I think a lot of times people think of sustainability, they automatically think thrifted from clothing.
Yeah.
and upcycled. And so this is just another way to bring sustainability into your life without it necessarily feeling like it has to be of a certain aesthetic. This is, the typical quilting cottons that you would find in any
Yeah.
store and any online quilt shop, but now purchasing secondhand so that it feels, it has that added sustainability to it without it having necessarily the look that people associate with sustainable
Sure,
quilts.
with the upcycled out of clothing and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Yeah. And it's giving
Mm-hmm.
people an opportunity to use new to you materials. Because there's other stores out there that we have in Canada. We've got Our Social Fabric, which is a dead stock place where they have dead stock
Mm-hmm.
from manufacturers, but those are
Yep.
pre-consumer materials. This is
Right.
post-consumer material, which is a little bit
Right.
different and
Right.
harder
Right.
to access, really. But yeah, it's a great way of finding that next layer in how to repurpose materials because they're not
Mm-hmm. Just
used
thinking
in
a little differently about it.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's just having this another option for people. I think options are really good on the sustainable piece because the first thing we should do is shop our own stash
Yes.
when we are going to make our next project. And then we could shop on destash places. We can thrift and upcycle. And then there's the dead stock purchasing as well. There's so many options before we have to step into the buy new.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so
Mm-hmm.
good to start seeing those become more commonplace. I think that's really awesome. One of the areas that I'm always interested in is talking about why we need to worry about this in the first place and why we need to be
Mm-hmm.
thinking about destashing and in a way that is not only sustainable in terms of keeping materials out of landfills, but also helping those people who might need the money. Because at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
if we don't have funds to continue doing what it is we want to do or supporting our families in different ways, then that's not sustainable. We can't just spend money and not have income coming in and not have.
Right.
So for some of us, that is important, is to have that financial piece back in our pockets so that we can continue to help our families and doing that kind of stuff. So I think that that's also totally
Mm-hmm.
valid. People don't have to give away their stashes. I think people feel guilty
Yeah.
about that in some ways, right? Like they think, oh, well, I should just be giving this and donating it to somebody who needs it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that one of those
I mean,
stories that you hear?
I think part of it is that people feel that the work to do the destash in the
Sure,
end, their time is worth a certain value as well. And so
sure,
then when they balance out what they might make off of it, they sometimes might tend to just want to donate it.
sure,
And I think also there's kind of a paralysis when it comes to figuring out how to price something.
sure.
We surveyed a lot of our newsletter subscribers, and when we asked, what's something that keeps you from wanting to destash, what would be something holding you back? It was the fear of not getting what they thought it was worth and feeling like they missed out on something that they could have gotten for it.
Oh,
And I
interesting.
almost feel like they feel like there's more control of the process when donating and expecting
Okay.
nothing in return
Right.
than
Oh,
expecting
interesting.
something and being disappointed.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. This is part of getting into the quilter's mind.
Yes, yes. So there's
Tricky
a
place.
psychology aspect to it too.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And all of those things that we tell ourselves, right? Yeah, interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for all the work that you're doing. I think it's really, really cool to see some efforts
Thank you.
and know about these different kinds of efforts that are happening around the world and in different regions. It's really good.
Thanks so much for helping me to promote it and get the
Yeah.
message out.
Yeah. I love that conversation with Kim, and one of the reasons is because it's really timely. I get a lot of people messaging me and asking me if I can help them figure out where they can send materials that they've inherited from loved ones or people close to them in their lives. They're trying to figure out where they can send these stashes of materials because they know they're valuable to somebody. They just don't know what to do with them. And I've been starting to see that there's a big gap out there in terms of being able to access those resources for the regions that they're in. So my question to you folks is, do you have a place near you that you can send materials? And I'm not meaning necessarily clothing. I'm meaning more like what Kim is talking about, these post-consumer materials that we have in our stashes, and how can we get them into the hands of people who want to use them again? I'd love for you to write into me or message me or send me an email about different associations, different groups, different businesses that are in the regions that you're in, where you're from, and send me links if you can, because I'm trying to build a bit of a database so we can have access to a resource that actually helps us deal with this type of materials, because it happens in our lives often. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to talking with you again next time. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Threads of Sustainability. If you enjoy the stories behind sustainable textiles, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share the podcast. Keep the conversation going over at the Green Stitchers Hive, and until next time, let's continue working towards a future that values both creativity and our planet. Happy stitching.